Hello and welcome to the Super Rugby Round 18 preview brought to you by DrivingMaul. Hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for rugby opinion and prediction. And we're going to run through all of the games this week that are coming up this weekend. And to join me to do that, I have none other. Oh, come on, screen change there. And Steve and Shane, how are you doing, boys?
Very good.
Too bad.
So here I am in New Plymouth, New Zealand, with my fire going because it's absolutely freezing. And Shane, you've got your Hawaiian shirt on and unbuttoned and warm and hot, and it's oh dear, it's just cruel, I tell you.
We've had a little bit of a warm spell, if you like, Paul, in northern New South Wales. It's around it was 23 degrees yesterday for the middle of winter, so it's good to get the Hawaiian shirt, the shorts on, and have a barbecue.
Oh my word! No, dear me, no. It's whilst we've had some great clear skies and Mount Taranaki is looking fantastic. I've got to say it has been cold. We've had Arctic conditions here. I've got snow on the mountain, and the cold air comes off that mountain. It's a bit nippy. It's probably Steve all the way down in the south, practically living in the Antarctic with penguins down there. He probably thinks it's kind of balmy warm up here, but for me, no, this is it's all a little bit nippy. Evening to Christian and Jack, who I see in the live chat now. Hi guys, the live chat is there from both Periscope and YouTube, and if you put your questions up there, we can bring them on screen, and we'll have a chat about them as well. So kicking off on Friday nights, our first game of the weekend is the table-topping Crusaders against the Highlanders, who had a bit of a tough one last weekend away in Fiji. Was that all a bit too hot for them, Steve? Do you think the Highlanders can bounce back in the colder Christchurch? And what do you think of the lineup tonight?
Well, I think they'll probably be a bit more acclimatised to it. But before I talk too much about the match, I do want to bring out the fact that they have renamed the stadium Wyatt Crockett Stadium for this matchup, for its 200th game. And, I mean, you've got to take a minute here and say to the guy, that's phenomenal. It's just ridiculous that the influence that he's had over the team in Super Rugby for such a long time. So big ups for him for that. I'm not his biggest fan, always been a bit of a knocker of him, but 200 games, you cannot argue with that. But looking at this game, I think two things I'm going to be most excited about for this one.
If we're going to refer to that, let's have a quick chat about that. Rugby Reg from Green and Gold Rugby put up a quite amusing tweet who said, if you're going to rename it Wyatt Crockett, you've got no complaints if it suddenly decides to collapse halfway through the game. And, some questioning about Wyatt Crockett's scrummaging ability maybe there. He's a little dig. So anyway, congratulations to Wyatt Crockett. That is an amazing feat to get up to 200 caps.
It's a bit rough for old Wyatt. Anyway, on to the matchup, though. I've got two areas here that I can't wait to see in this game, which is going to be the midfield battle. So I'm talking the Ty Ward and Rob Thompson, who have been amazing all season long for the Highlanders, going up against the Ryan Crotty and Jack Goodhue, who are almost, you'd say, the All Black midfield choosing. Goodhue's he's in the frame. So that's what I'm looking forward to on the backs. In the forwards, I think the back row has a massive battle. Squire, Lynchies, and Whitelock up against Bedwell, Curtis, Todd, and Reid. So there you go. There's another spoiler. Kieran Reid is back as well. So I'm sure you're going to want to talk about that one, him being back in the side for the first time. But that's the two areas I think is going to be key in this game for me between these two sides. You talked about outdoors. That's going to be, it's being talked about a bit more now too, whether it's actually a thing for the Highlanders, whether it's actually a problem for them. So this is going to be important that they actually do show up on this, because they can't afford that first 40 minutes they did in Fiji. That was terrible. We all know about that. But we talked about how good their defence is. But do you know, stat number one, stat man coming at you, the Highlanders have made the most tackles of the competition. You know this? But you also notice they've conceded the most line breaks. So, good defence, is it? Or is it just making tackles without the ball? That's the Highlanders style of rugby, isn't it? It's kick it away and make the other team play. So,
scrambling defence, I think it's called, when you manage to cover the line breaks and not give up points.
True. But also, another point, you look at that Crusaders line out, with players like Barrett and Whitelock propping that up. So they're the team that has turned over the least of their opponent's throws, which I found extremely surprising. A team with a pack, especially like that, doesn't turn over more of the opposition throws. So I think Highlanders definitely have a chance here to, if they can front up in the pack, they could definitely give it a shout. I mean, they've beaten them once already this season. Why not twice?
Well, the other one's at home, wasn't it? And that's going back to.
Oh, that's.
Go.
That doesn't matter.
And going back to my prediction rules, if you're looking at doing a New Zealand derby, always go for the home team. That's my prediction rules. So unless it's the Blues, because the Blues, just always lose against other sides.
They'll be right, mate.
So Shane, ain't Kieran Reid a play that you're a fan of? Good to have to see him back.
Kieran Reid is definitely a player I'm a fan of, even if I am Australian. I'm looking forward to seeing that now that that's one of the best news that I've heard all day, other than listening to the rabble on Australian politics. So we got Crotty back as well. And so a couple of old mates come back for Wyatt Crockett's 200th, and I know, and I've been on here before, and I've said it, Wyatt Crockett is my favourite prop of all time. After Ewan McKenzie, of course. But,
He's not in his Reds jersey tonight, but that tells you something.
Good on the bloke, I hope that, well, it's a battle of the South Island, and you've got a creative centre, crash-it-up centre in Ryan Crotty, the dynamic Jack Goodhue. Steve's mentioned Thompson, and what was the other chap's name again?
Ty Warden.
Ty Warden.
And you've got the Smith brothers, not the Smith brothers, but the Lark brothers, the Smith boys in the Highlanders. You've got a very dynamic midfield battle between both the Highlanders forwards and the Crusaders forwards. So it's going to be really, really intriguing. Points are on the line. The Highlanders will want to come back and prove themselves after the debacle in Fiji. The Crusaders, well, they just prove points every year that they come out and play. So go and get stuck in, boys. That's what I want to see as a fan.
So it's going to be interesting. Interesting to see Cody Taylor on the bench rather than starting. So being given a bit of a rest this weekend. And when you look at sort of Cody Taylor, Wyatt Crockett, and Ala Alatoa coming off that bench, that's a pretty handy front row to come off the bench after the hour mark. The couple of interesting ones I thought for the Highlanders. A bit of a surprise to see the Barracuda on the wing. And also, again, Ash Dixon is on the bench with giving Liam Coltman the start this time round. So another one there. And also, with Josh Ione and Fletcher Smith, it looks like there are that's in the 22 and 23 jerseys, the Highlanders are stacked with fly halves. But if they do lose one of those centres, expect Barracuda to move in and Fletcher Smith to go out on the wing, I think, or fall back and Ben Smith go on the wing. It's going to any injuries in the back line is going to involve a whole bunch of a bit of a reshuffle there for the Highlanders in that back line. So some interesting selections there. Liam Squire and Elliot Dixon bracketed with each other, so not quite sure which one will actually start. There isn't a suggestion that one would go to the bench, so it sounds like one would either play or the other one would go out at the match day 23 entirely, which is a bit strange.
I think Squire is a bit 50-50 or whether he's going to start the match. So that's why they got that bracket on there. So I think they're not going to know on that until game day or close to it.
Cool. But yeah, apart from that, it's going to be standard ones. So go on then, Steve. You've already said the Highlanders have won once this year. What's your prediction for the return game?
Right, I said they've won once, but I don't think they're going to win twice. The Crusaders are too much of a runaway horse, aren't they? And it's something, when I recorded my preview, that's just gone on my channel today, if you'd like to check it out as well. Table positions. Remember, we only got a couple of rounds left in the competition. This game not too much of an effect. You got the Crusaders who are galloping away with it as they have done most of the season. But for the Highlanders, this is a bit of a tentative period for them. They sit on 40 points. They've got a lot of teams around them. The Chiefs obviously leapfrogged them with that victory in Fiji. They're on 41. But they've got the Jaguares who are just behind them. And you're talking about those playoff spots where obviously that's going to determine who they will possibly play in that top four. So they've got to look out. They could possibly drop below the Jaguares, the Highlanders, if they don't get a couple of good results, finish off their season. So they need to keep on here, and they need to get, really, ideally, 2 wins over the last couple of games. But I don't think they're going to do it this weekend, and I do have the Crusaders by 8.
You can by 8. Oh, wow. Shane, what's your call this weekend?
Look, I think, as I said, the Highlanders will obviously have something to prove, but it's the Crusaders that, and I laugh because they just do it time and time and time again. They just prove this competition in terms of the way they play. So I'm going to say just a little bit too much strength there, and about the Crusaders by 10.
I'm going slightly less than both of you, but Crusaders by 7. I think we're all unanimous there at the home side. And as I said, your prediction rules say New Zealand derby, go with the home team.
It's business time for the Crusaders, isn't it? This is when they click into gear.
Absolutely.
Typically slow starters, not so much this year, but you get to that business end. So many professionals, experienced internationals, they just know when it's time that they've got to go.
I think this whole slow starting business is out of date, and it's their new with Razor as coach. He has totally dispelled all of that, and it's no longer an issue. I think that was a Blackadder problem, not and that Razor has fixed. I say has fixed that one. So yeah, I don't think slow starters anymore. We then head over to Australia for the Reds versus the Rebels. The Reds apparently wanting to tie down or suggesting that Brad Thorne should be their coach for the next 10 years. With the amazing record he's got so far, you can see where they're coming from. Not, I mean, geez, here's a guy. First, Shane, you're a Reds fan. Brad Thorne in his first season, he's not done a bad job, but he's hardly done a fantastic one. What do you think about this 10-year idea?
Oh dear! Bring back Link.
Link. Whoa.
Look, he's certainly done his best. He's a first-year coach, and like any first-year coach, you've got to make some very, very tough decisions. Sorry, Quade, you had to go, son. And a few others had to go, and the young fellas had to come through. But tying someone down for 10 years, oh, gee. You have to ask yourself some hard questions at Queensland, don't you? Every single year after 2013, as it's been, been nothing short of a debacle.
Administration-wise, they're a bit of a mess. Now they haven't said necessarily that they want to tie him down to a 10-year contract, but just they would like to see him there for 10 years. Now, if he is there after 10 years, successfully is fine. But yeah, don't go giving a long-term contract. That's just crazy talk because you won't be able to sack him and buy him out of it. But anyway, with that out of the way, so what do you think of the selection? We've got George Smith, Scott Higginbottom, plenty of experience in that Reds pack.
There is. Sorry, go, Steve.
No, yeah, go talk about your team. I will not stop the man talking about his team.
There is, but I suppose with our emblem we've got a koala, and 2 koalas could probably do a better job. I think this is we're not in contention for anything, so this is the time for the last 2 games to go and prove to the fans what we're worth. And Higginbotham and Smith, great. Well, Scotty is a great servant of the past, as is George Smith. George Smith is coming to the end of his career in that back row. So,
well, he's gone and signed for Bristol in the English Premiership for the next season. So he's not about to hang his boots up. He still thinks he's got more rugby in him.
Well, maybe, but Radiki Samo would be probably better than Scott Higginbotham.
Oh no, I'm talking about George Smith. Sorry, not Higginbotham.
Oh, no, you're referring to Smith. I was pointing out that I would have probably had old Radiki back. But I'd give some young fellas a go. I'd just keep with this young fella selection. We've got nothing to lose in our last couple of games, so good luck, boys. Get stuck in. The Rebels are desperate.
And you say that, you've got nothing to lose in the last couple of games, and you're playing John O'Lance at 15, who is off to Worcester Warriors next season. Why stick with him? Why not give someone else a go and get some game time, as you say? Sure, there have been defensive issues and maybe some kicking question marks around kicking, but you're not going to have him next year, so why not just bench him? Now that basically your chances of the playoffs are all gone. So that's what I would do, personally. And then, Steve, when we look at the Rebels, British and Irish line, Jeff Parling in the row for them. Some more experience in the pack. So both sides got a bit of experience going into this game.
Yeah, this game to me is about the forward pack of the Reds, which I think they have the edge in that area, versus the back line of the Rebels. That's the big thing for me. It's going to be which of the weaker of the two can combat the stronger of the other. So if the Rebels pack can show up and nullify the effect that the Reds forward pack could have, as they've shown in bits and pieces throughout the season, they should definitely control this game pretty well. I do think their back line overall is going to be too strong for what the Reds have to offer. It's amazing when you look at the Reds and you sum up this season from what you've watched of them, and you say in patches they've done really, really well. They've done some really good things, but their record, they're second last on the table. They've only won 4 games, and they haven't even scored a 4-try bonus point in the whole season. When you break it down like that, they're not going very well at all. They're going atrociously. I agree with you on John O'Lance. I've been saying it for months now that he's just got to, fill in the squad and just, help out in other places. They really seem to like playing Aidan Toller at fullback. Put him in the team. Start him at fullback. He's going to be your guy there next season. Those sorts of things. So, yeah, I agree 100% with that, and they need to keep developing. But on the stat front, because we're always masterful stat here on your channel, Paul, the Rebels, did you know, are actually the top run meter side in the competition. So, you can criticise the way they've played, but they make the yards, and I think they're going to continue to clock them up, albeit against Australian opposition, but they're going to clock up a few here against the Reds, who their backline defence has been a bit shoddy this season. But also for the Rebels, they have to look at what I said in the last game, table position. They are 8th, so they're right on the cutoff, and they have massive pressure on them. The Sharks, they're less than a win away from being jumped over. But also for the Rebels, they've got to look at the fact that they could also leap up the table. Talk of how the Jaguares are going to go for the rest of the season, as already mentioned them, they could go up and win, but they could also drop down if they don't win. So the Rebels, they need this win, not only to secure their spot in the playoffs, but to also not drop out of it completely. So this is a huge game, I think, for the Rebels, and they're going to be desperate. They're going to be really desperate to make that milestone of securing the playoffs. And the Reds, on the other hand, they've got nothing to play for. They're not going to be anywhere near as desperate. So, if the game's close, if it's tight, that extra little 10% is not going to come the way of the Reds.
Yeah, and it could come down to actually depth in these sides. Obviously, the Rebels have been missing Will Genia, and so Ruru starts again. But in the Reds, their best back in Karevi is also missing as well. So those Reds backs do like to run with the ball, but as you say, can be a bit turnstilish on defence at times. So yeah, that's what the Rebels want to do. When they get the ball into people like Jack Maddox, Corey Betty, Dane Hellett-Petty, get it out wide, running at those wingers, and I think that's where what the Rebels will be looking at doing. As you say, running the ball back rather than kicking it. I think in this game, as you say, keep the ball in hand. So that's what I think we'll be seeing. I've gone for a home victory. For an away victory. Rebels by 5. Shane, are you going to back your boys, or do you think the Rebels are going to get up on this one?
Well, Steve actually mentioned the bonus point try. The last time the Reds actually got the bonus point try was against the Rebels last year. Look.
But the Rebels, the Rebels last year weren't half the force with Vessels, so it's a different Rebels side, isn't it?
I just wanted to point that one out.
That's what I was
for a bit of momentum, boys.
Get your stats out there. I'm all for them.
Look, the Rebels by 15. I really think that they're going to get stuck in the midfield running and out wide to Halapeti and Corabetti. And I'd be interested to see if Hodge is playing 10. Yes. Well, he better keep the ball in hand, son. Don't throw some intercept passes, because that's probably the only thing that's probably going to get the Reds over the line. Other than that, I think it's going to be a comfortable Rebels victory.
Steve?
Interesting. I've gone for the Rebels. I'm kind of regretting my margin that I'll put down, because, you bring up a few good points about how this game's probably going to go. But what concerns me about this Reds side is the pressure. Like, I'm a big fan of Stewart playing at fly half, but when you look through the rest of that backline, like you say, defensively not the greatest, but also on attack, they don't really play for each other like you'd expect them to play. Stewart's really the only guy that's out there trying to create space for those guys outside, and where the rest of them are mainly just bulldozers and try and outpace people. So I feel it's going to be tough on him. It's a really hard learning season for him, but I've only gone the Rebels by 4 points. But hopefully it might be close and exciting.
Hopefully. Yes, that's your Friday night over and done with. We then head into Saturday, and it's an early game in Hamilton for the Chiefs versus the Brumbies. The Chiefs, obviously, with that stunning first half up in Fiji last weekend. And we see the Webber Mackenzie axis again. No triple T, Steve.
I mean, well, there hardly has been all season, hasn't there? He's not really had much of the favoritism, not especially since the internationals, where you would have thought he would have taken over that position. But how can you argue with what the Chiefs have done? Why would you want to change anything in that side after the blitz of that first half versus the Highlanders? And you look at this team and the stats that surround them really point them towards being a forward-dominated team. They lead the pick and goes and stats like that around the forward pack. But it's a team that can really slice you to absolute pieces if you give them half a chance. And they back that up with the fact that they also have the most line breaks in the competition as well. So it's a dangerous, dangerous side. It's great to see players like Charlie Ngatai up there cleaning things up. They're getting a lot of comeback from Alemano, players like him. They're just playing out of their skin. Nobody's at the start of the season. These guys are, super rugby, almost stars now in this backline. And this season, we've looked at the Chiefs and gone, yeah, they're a bit light. They don't have the depth. They're getting hammered by injuries. They just churn out guys that can just step it up to the level. And they've got leaders in this team as well, which I think makes a big, big difference. When you've got guys like Liam Messam, I think, who's been such a massive part of the culture, a thing that the Chiefs take make so important in the team. And he leads that from the front. And the team, like we've seen from the All Blacks as well. Oh, hang on 2 seconds. What did the armbands say? Trust the process. And that's what the Chiefs are all about.
They are, but we're looking at missing some players. So Antoinette Brown is missing from that back line. Sean Stevenson gets a rare start on the wing as well. And obviously they're missing one of Shane's favourite players. Brady Retallick still is out. So they're not up to full scratch by any stretch of the imagination, are they?
They haven't been all season,
Well,
really. I mean, the guys just perform. I mean, Wainui's been there all season. It's not like they're losing anything. Stevenson is a fairly experienced Super Rugby player now. He's been around for a few seasons as well. It's not like they're bringing in these guys out of club rugby and expecting them to step up at this crucial part of the season. They're at home as well, which I think is going to be a big advantage for them. And like I say, the pack is performing. The guys that you'd question mark, I mean, Jacobson was brilliant in the second half where they were under massive pressure against the Highlanders. He was a standout. And he's starting this game. So I think they're in safe hands. I had doubts about the Chiefs at the start of the year, but they really have brought in some fresh blood to not only their camp, but to New Zealand rugby as well.
And Shane, the Brumbies, another forward-orientated team, players like Pocock and Nazarani are going to be leading the effort there. Can their line-out maul get them over the line against the Chiefs?
Well, firstly, I've got to say that just brought tears to the eye of an Australian, the way the Brumbies played fantastically against the Hurricanes. So well done, boys, on that. No, I'm going to say that the Chiefs are a side that get stuck in defence, and obviously I'm a big fan of Retallick. Would have liked to have seen him absolutely destroy the Brumbies line-out maul. But I think they've still got the cattle on the park, given that Waikato is a cattle area, I believe. And they know...
Get those bells out, yes.
Whatever's in the milk in Waikato is certainly working for the Chiefs, boys. The Brumbies have just got to... Look, I'll say it again. The Brumbies have got to do things the old school way, the old school Aussie way, and that is run at the line, counter-attack at the line, because the Chiefs play a game. If you get at your square from your toolbox and mark it at angles of 90 degrees, that is how the Chiefs play. Very quick, they run at an angle, which allows Mackenzie the gap through to give to his inside and outside backs, which I think is absolutely a wonderful way of rugby. So the Brumbies have got to watch the speed, but they've also got to make sure that they do the basics right. And if it means getting old school and getting stuck in, that's what they've got to do. And I think the Chiefs will just have too much class there on Saturday night. Yeah,
absolutely. Another player that's heading overseas, Carl Goodwin, seems to have come back into favour over the last few weeks, which is a bit of a surprise. They tried putting
had a good game. Yeah.
They tried putting Leofano at 12, but that's they've reverted back to putting him back at 10. I see Leofano more as a distributing 12 than a controlling 10. But there you go. But with Godwin and Kurandrani, they have got a decent midfield there. But it's really going to have to be that pack that shows up. And a bit surprised to see Blake Enever starting ahead of Richie Arnold. So yeah, a bit of surprise there to see him to see that Richie isn't going to start with Rory Arnold and have that twin towers in the second row. Oh dear, Steve cringing, fantastic. So even with that Hurricanes win last weekend, Shane, you're not going for you're going for the Chiefs. By how many?
Well, they won by 18 last year. So, anywhere from about 13 to 18. The Brumbies, I was singing Swing Low, Sweet Chariot the way the Brumbies were playing against the Hurricanes. Paul, you'd know that pretty well.
Actually, well, yes.
Good luck to them.
If you search DrivingMaul Swing Low, Sweet Chariot on YouTube, you can even get a video of me singing it. So if you want a unaccompanied a cappella solo of Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, feel free to give that a quick search on YouTube. So you're going.
Yeah. I'll be ringing the Mooloo bells this weekend. Going for the Chiefs.
You go for the Chiefs? Yeah, I'm going Chiefs, but by a lot less. I'm going for the Chiefs by 5. I think I'm impressed by Brumbies' resilience last weekend. Steve, who's got it right? Is it going to be a tight one, or are you looking at a bit of a blowout?
I'm kind of in between the two of you. I think the Brumbies will be definitely high on confidence. You definitely take a lot from that win against the Hurricanes, but I just see they're just going to get carved to shreds in the back line. The forward pack's where it's going to be, obviously they can try and get some advantage, but I see the matchup Ngatai versus Godwin, and I see, there's only one winner there. And there's a lot of front foot ball, there's a lot of go forward through that middle part, unless he has, 20 times even what he played last week, which was decent by his standards. So I'm going by 11 for the Chiefs.
By 11, wow. So in between us. Now we've got to say a quick interlude here. So please, just a reminder, if you're enjoying this, hit the old like button, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new on the channel. If you're watching the Periscope, then clearly hit the old retweet and let all your friends know. So don't forget to do that. After that early game, the evening game is the Canes versus the Blues. Now the Canes coming off a loss to the Brumbies, not looking particularly good over these last couple of weeks, and the Blues with their lineup of back 3 players and not playing any centres, got the win last weekend. Is that harem scarum wild play of lots of outside backs going to help them here, Shane?
Oh dear, this is eventually the drought, like Australia's rugby drought against New Zealand sides, had to end, and I think the Blues drought has to end some stage against their own opponents, their own conference. They got to. I reckon they just got to go out there and prove a point. The outside backs. It's interesting because Sonny Bill was out last week, wasn't he, with injury?
Yeah, Sonny Bill's out for the rest of the season as far as Blues concerned. He probably will miss the first Rugby Championship game as well. So again, we've got the same back line for the Blues, which is Pulu, obviously at scrum half with Perifetta running things, Rico and Michael Collins in the centre partnership, and then Caleb Clark, Milane Nanai on the wings, and Duffy at fullback.
I'm going to have to defend Tano Umaga and say that he's doing the best with the cattle he's got to put on the park there. It's obviously people would like to have seen Sonny out there and Rico on the wing, and there's no dispute there. But one person I will give a big rap to is the other Wani brother, Akira. He got through a lot of work last week, and he's probably going to have to get through a lot of work this week against a very, very good Hurricanes pack and a very, very good backline, an all-round side.
So Steve, talking about the Hurricanes, Steve, some interesting selections. Artie Surveyor still out, injured, but Brad Shields comes back for his 100th cap. So he comes back. And then we also have Ben Lamb has been dropped to the bench. He is the man who couldn't do anything wrong earlier in the season, now has been jettisoned, and Wes Hewson at outside centre. I've seen him as a winger, but it's the first time I've seen him step into the 13 jersey.
Well, it gives us a bit of backing now, doesn't it, for those of us who said, no, he shouldn't be an All Black in those June internationals, and everyone threw ice creams and rotten fruit at us. So now we can say, told you so. He can't even make the Hurricane side now. He did look average last week, and he's a far cry from what we expect from what we've seen from him in the past. But yeah, interesting. I think the most, the biggest part of this lineup is that Bowden Barrett is back at fly half. Nothing against old Garden Bishop. Well, we could put something against him because he really isn't at the calibre of being at a good Super Rugby level. And that team changes massively without that threat of Bowden Barrett, who can do as much as his outside backs can do. So huge to have him back. The English import, you talked about Brad Shields. Yep, he's there for 100 games as well. So well done for him, but no one really cares about him anymore. But Milner Scudder, good to see Milner Scudder back in the team. No one cares about Brad Shields. He's a POM. He can go. Out the door, 100 games. Thank you for your service, Brad. See you later. We'll see you at the World Cup or at the end of your tour. That's fine. But the Hurricanes who we're talking about, still look really, really dangerous. Very good side. Houston, I think, is a very adaptable player. He can move around most of that backline positions. Definitely outside backs is his preferred sort of area. But a good little player, I think. Definitely an underrated player for the Hurricanes. So, yeah, I'm liking this team. But they had two very average wingers last week, which they can't afford to keep doing that if they want to keep up get these wins back flowing in the capital.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the other player we should talk about, Jerome Kano, will become the second most capped Blues player ever, overtaking, I've gone blank as to who's overtaken, the prop guy. I want to say Woodcock, but I don't mean Woodcock. Oh, beep. Anyway. Doesn't matter. Just behind Kevin Mialamu, who is the most capped ever Blue. So he's he becomes the second most capped ever Blue, and it would be great to see if he could do something like Liam Messham's done, and show a bit more of his sort of a bit of a Indian summer to his career. But yeah, I think Kane's more physical style is. Pardon?
Tony Woodcock.
Yes. Has perhaps isn't quite suited for that kind of that kind of thing. So I've with Bowden Barrett back. I mean, I made my prediction before we actually knew the lineups, and I went the Hurricanes by 3 because they have not been great even with Bowden Barrett back for the last few weeks. They had those 2 losses going into the international break. Admittedly, those were away games against New Zealand opposition, as New Zealand eyes, not home games. So I'm just going the Canes by 3. I think this is the best opportunity the Blues have had in a long time to try and get themselves that elusive derby win, but I think they're going to kind of come up just short. Shane, by how many? And I'm assuming you're going with the Canes.
Yeah, I'm going with the Hurricanes, but you'd like the Blues to get stuck in and prove a point. I'd say the Hurricanes by 10.
Ooh. Steve?
Yeah, this is my biggest margin of the weekend, this one, and I think the Hurricanes don't have a choice here but to start winning again, because that home quarterfinal is under pressure, and it's under pressure by the Chiefs especially, and the Highlanders if they can get a win this weekend as well, because they've only got a 4-point lead over the Chiefs. So the pressure is on the Hurricanes to get this result. They've got to bring all the big guns back. They've done it. Now they've got to perform. Expectation is getting high, and I've gone the Hurricanes by 15. They're going to click. Bang.
And a good point is that they have to, they really do have to win this. If they don't win this weekend, then you've got to say they haven't got much chance in the finals, as been said in the live chat. Also, Colkin Matthew on Periscope. So I'm just going to take a little divergence here. And the Force host Samoa this weekend in the World Series. I've not been watching this, but Shane, I know you've been keeping an eye on the World Series and how it's all going. How do you see the Force? How do you see the Force going against Samoa?
Well, they played. This is going to be a good exam. Probably not the best example of a gauge of how the Force are overall going, but I think they'll get the win. They played very well against Fiji and Tonga in their first couple of games. But this is also a good chance for some of the Samoan boys to prove their mettle, and also this competition is giving our island neighbours a chance to have a run around. So I haven't seen the lineup for who the Western Force are putting on the park, but the Western Force obviously will be playing in the National Rugby Championship as well. So they'll, and that's starting in about 6 weeks' time. So they'll want to have a good run out and enjoy the run out and see if they can get a good result.
One of the points, one of the things to mention about on the Samoa side is because of the whole shenanigans that's been happening with the World Rugby World Cup qualification, they weren't supposed to be playing this weekend, but because that's happened, they will actually be they're going to have to field a side against Germany in the Rugby World Cup qualification, and field a side against the Western Force on the same day. So obviously they can't fly players between Perth and wherever they're playing in Germany, but so it's going to have to be separate squads, obviously, for those.
I think you'll find, Paul, that it will be more like a Samoa A or a Samoa B sort of side.
Yeah, exactly.
So it'll be, but that's still a good thing for the development of these players to have a run out and enjoy the run out, and I think they'll do that, and hopefully there's going to be some entertaining rugby, because the game that the Force played against Fiji and the game they played against Tonga had some big hits and some good running rugby, so I expect more of the same.
All right, should be a good run out. Steve, you've been keeping an eye on the...
Force by 10.
Force by 10? Whoa, okay. Steve, have you been keeping an eye on the World Series? And any idea what to expect in this one?
Marginally. Followed it a little bit as it's been going on, the ins and outs and things like that. But, I mean, Shane's nailed most of it on the head, really, about what this competition is all about. It's great for the Force and their fans and that area of Australia to get the rugby back, which is what we all complained about when they got rid of the Force. But they've made it so they're having an impact throughout what most people want to see, which is getting these island countries a bit of rugby, that exposure, and it's all around just a good thing. And to have those other sides coming in as well, like we're seeing from the Rebels and the Crusaders over the international break, gives it, just a little bit more of a respectability, I guess, to the competition. And good on the Force, and they've been going pretty well, so you can't argue with their form against most of the sides out there. So yeah, I mean, that World Cup qualifying match is a bit unlucky, isn't it, really, for the poor old Samoans? So I think I know what they're going to prioritise, and I mean, after the first league, it should be a coasting for them, really, shouldn't it?
Oh, it should be. I mean, they beat Germany 15-66. 66-15 in the first leg. So they should coast it. And by the way, both these games, both the Western Force Samoa game and the Germany Samoa game, aren't this weekend. They're next weekend, the weekend after. So in 9 days' time. So the Force aren't actually playing this weekend. Right, back to Super Rugby action, and after we go from one capital to, actually not a capital at all. Sydney's not the capital of Australia, is it? What was I thinking? I was going to jump from, anyway, so we'll go from Wellington to Sydney anyway. The Waratahs obviously look like they cemented top of the Australian Conference last weekend. Now the big question is, can they overtake the Lions to try and get themselves second seed above rather than the third seed? Pretty settled side that we've seen before. I mean, Phipps, Foley, Beale, Rona. Still missing Hooper though, Shane. Going to be a big loss for them.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Hooper would have been very critical to break down plays, particularly against the New Zealand and bigger South African sides come finals time. But that's not to be. But the Sunwolves have done pretty well for a gauge of their season, but the Waratahs will want to stamp their authority on Saturday night. They really want to put they'll want to win the conference and get the job done. And with Beale and Foley, Phibbs, Folau's back, I believe. Voro, and still a very good forward pack. They'll they want to put on points and put on points quickly. And then I'd reckon by about that 50-minute mark, start to give some of the bench a go and get the guys ready for the next week, which is the Brumbies, which is always a big clash for them. So I think you'll see players being rested pretty early in the game. I think I'm thinking that the Tars are gonna probably win it comfortably enough.
Really? Because Steve, the Sunwolves in the last sort of 3 proper games beat the Reds at home, beat the Stormers in Hong Kong, and then beat the Bulls in Singapore. Sure, there are a couple of losses on their last trip down to Australia, but their international players were away in camp. So the last sort of 3 real games, they can walk away with three wins. Can they keep that run going in Sydney?
Well, I think the key things you spoke about in a couple of those last wins were in Hong Kong and in Singapore. Not the home ground official, but it's still part of their home group. I mean, it's still home fans, isn't it? But you can't take that away from them too much. They have been a very tenacious side. You cannot discount them. They seem to always, even if they're behind by 40 or 50 points, they seem to be putting in a good shift, and they never really give up. And that's starting to actually come into effect now, and they're actually being able to stay into the games, which is massive for them. I think the form of Hayden Parker and the type of player he is this season has transformed the side into one that can actually be taken a little bit more seriously with a guy, old school fly half, isn't he? Kind of where he kicks very well, he gives them territorial base to run their game off, and he distributes very, very well. He controls the flow of their game. And, I mean, for a guy that has sat at the Highlanders for so long, learnt the game over their best seasons, you've got to say, behind, some very, very good players there as well. He's taken that and he has really built a great little career for himself there. And, I mean, I look at that team and there's some real talent in that side, like a backline with Yamada, Little, Emery, Masarewa. That's some decent little players in there as well, but it's their pack that I think has really stood up tall again this season. There was some, it's imported players in as well that really boost the side, but they can never be taken for granted. And I think if the Waratahs, Shane, like you said, if they do that, 50 minutes, they start to throw everyone off and give them a bit of a rest, might not be to their advantage, because you've got to look at the table here for the Waratahs. They're not out of the woods. You can say they are attacking the Lions for that second spot, but they need to watch the Rebels here, because we're all saying the Rebels are going to pick up a victory against the Reds. The difference between them is only 4 points. And, I mean, how close was that game between the Waratahs and the Rebels, where it could have easily gone the other way? So they are not cleaning away just yet. They'll be desperate to win this and win this well, because they know that's going to secure them Australia, and that's going to put them in a position for postseason. And the next week isn't so important. You don't want to go into a crucial game against a team like the Brumbies, where you have to do it all after slipping up, you could still say, against the Sunwolves.
Yeah, I think the Sunwolves are going to score points. That's one of the things they have done this season, is they've had some lovely attacking moves by their backs, and they've got some serious pace out there. So they will score some points, but they also have a tendency to leak points as well. And you say, with the way that Hayden Parker's kicking has gone over the last 5-6 games, you really have to... The key thing for the Waratahs is going to be discipline. And if they keep their discipline, don't give up too many penalties, then they will starve the Sunwolves of some points. That's how their previous game, they managed to keep that scoreboard ticking over through his kicking, and that sort of helped them along. But so I think that's going to be key is Waratahs' discipline. Even with those good results from the Sunwolves, I'm backing the Tars by 3 in this one. So I think there is a small chance. Well, I think there's a fair chance. I think it's going to be a tight one. I don't think they're going to rest players in the same way that Shane has said. Steve, what's your margin? I think Shane said about 15.
Yep, I'm going with the Waratahs still to pull this one away. You talked about Hayden Parker's kicking, just to throw a stat out there. He's actually the best kicker in the competition to take more than 20 kicks. So he's kicking at 97%, which is pretty phenomenal considering he's taken 23 kicks. He's missed 1. So, yeah, he is an integral part to how the Sunwolves team's going to go. But, yes, still going with the Waratahs.
Well, that's nearly Marty Banks level.
Yeah, nearly. Not quite. No one reaches Marty Banks level. Still going Waratahs by 9.
Cool. And before we jump on to the last two games, if you want to support and help Driving Maul, the best way you can do that is to let all your mates know about us and about the show. So please do tell them. And obviously, you can also use social media to do that, or you can get old school and actually use words and your voice. So either way, do let them know about Driving Maul. If you'd like to support us financially, then Patreon is the best way. For just $1 a month, you can support us. So that will be in the pinned comment, the link for that it's in the notes on YouTube, and it's in my pinned tweet on Twitter if you'd like to help support Driving Maul. So the last two games, we've not got the squads for these yet, so we can't go through the players. But one of the Andre in the chat has been saying that the Jaguares are not going to win another game this season, and that's who's up next. It's the Bulls versus the Jaguares. Jaguares on a run of 7 wins. Shane, is Andre right that that it's the end of the road for the Jaguares, or are they going to power on through and win the Africa Conference?
Well, I thought the Bulls would have narrowly got away with it last week, and they didn't. Look, the Jaguares are obviously a different. Well, they play a lot differently under Ledesma than they did with the Hakade, the test coach that's been sacked. So they've obviously come into an atmosphere that they've enjoyed in Super Rugby. I don't know where the sentiment that they could lose all the rest of their games is coming from, because I think they're every chance of beating the Bulls again, and only about 4 weeks ago did so by 30. So, I think the Jaguares will start favourites because of their forward pack and their mobile backs, and they'll play a game that is on the level of the Bulls, so the Bulls are going to match it.
Steve, obviously John Mitchell at the Bulls has gotten much better at home than away, but they did get that poor loss to the Sunwolves last weekend, and historically they've never really travelled well. So in the High Veld at altitude, is that going to be enough to see off the marauding cats of the Jaguares?
Now, the start of the season. Remember round 1 of the season? The Bulls just stunned us all to delight. We were all so happy that this team that we had all talked about how rubbish they were going to be just made an amazing start to the season. I asked you one question: where the hell has that team gone? Because they are nowhere at all. I mean, they have fallen off. You look at that first game from the Bulls, and the big thing about them was their offloads from their big guys, mainly their second rowers. That was massive. They are the 12th team for offloads in the competition at this stage. Nowhere in reckoning to a front runner. So that part of the game is gone and swiftly gone out of it. Their last place at gaining their advantage line percentage. That's not going to win you games at all. They're last for tackle busts. They're 13th for line breaks. They don't attack. They can't offload anymore. And they just seem to be bumbling around the field. It's what most of us were saying at the start of the season this Bulls team are going to be. And eventually, I guess we can throw back that rotten fruit and say, told you so. But hey, the Jaguares on the other side. This is a fun story. Now, I don't know, you guys in the chat, maybe a bit of hate on the Jaguares side, but they could secure a playoff playoff position, I say, this weekend if they win for bonus point. Might still do it without the bonus point, might not need to win at all, but if they get that bonus point, that's it. They're in. They're booked. Book the planes, get your accommodation, because the Jaguares will be in the playoffs somewhere. They have just changed their game massively this season. The big things we talked about, they've only conceded 5 yellow cards this year. But, I mean, they're not that much better than the Bulls when it comes to the stats either. They're still 10th, they're 11th, with the line breaks, and so they're not doing that too well. But I think defensively is where they've picked up, because they're one of the better sides for not missing tackles and conceding line breaks as well. So that has definitely changed around this season. Defensiveness and discipline has transformed this Jaguares side. Coach, maybe? Atmosphere, environment, possibly that is the answer to the side. But they have definitely, 7 on the trot. You should have put $10 on that at the TAB, I tell you.
Christian goes, maybe it's a tough road trip. Yes, it is a tough road trip for the Jaguares. But the Jaguares went to Australia, won twice. Came to New Zealand after that, won twice. So they can win on the road. Sure, their last 3 wins have all been at home. And remember, they've been at home now for those 3 games, but also for those 3 weekends in June as well. For the actually 4 weekends in June because they finished a week earlier. So they've been in Argentina for the past, nearly 8 weeks, 7 or 8 weeks. So this is so they've had time to get rested, ready for this trip off to the Bulls. As you say, I think one of the things you'll be careful about with the Jaguares when you look at from as far as season stats go is basically they've won their last 7. So the first half of their season is stats wise should be irrelevant to them because of how of the run they're on now. So I'm totally on I'm a signed up member of the Jaguares pack. I'm trying to find the right word, but they're not. That pack would be dogs, wouldn't it, rather than cats? And I think they're going to see off the Bulls herd. Well, hey, here we go. I'm back in the Jaguares by 5. Shane, which way are you going?
Well, I think it would be within a bull's roar of me to say that I'm going for the Jaguares as well. I think by 5. I think, I just think there's just something this is the special story of Super Rugby this year. This is the story that's won a lot of fans and admiration. And those chaps with Mario Ledesma as their coach ought to be very, very proud of what they've achieved so far. Get stuck in, boys, and get the win.
Steve, before I come to you, I'm going to just try and sway you with a comment from Andre. Let's bring it up on screen. Loftus Vesterveld is a beep place to go, and the people go out of their way to make it unpleasant for the away team. Tough outing for the Jags. Yes, this is the sort of place where the fans will throw their beers over you, and perhaps even throw a few punches if you get too close to the crowd. It's not a pleasant place to go. It's perhaps one of the few places actually I don't want to go watch rugby because I don't think it'd be that fun with the crowd. So maybe Steve, could the Jaguares be unsettled by all of that, or what's your number? What give us your prediction?
Possibly, but you got to look at the mental space that this team's been in and how it's evolved over the last season. I think they're in a lot better place than they have been. Yes, in previous seasons, the Bulls could have lost every game of the season, and they could have gone near the Jaguares and just completely gone off their game. It is a tough game to pick. I see the comments, a lot of them saying it is a tough one to pick, but it's hard to ignore form. If all their wins had been at home, you could say, yep, they don't like to travel. But to come to Australia and then New Zealand, 4 games on the trot and produce performances like that, these guys have got something about them. I can't help but put it past the environment that's created in that team. And these guys just want to play and they want to win. And things have changed. They want to be there. And like they say, they're trusting the process and they've got the game plan. They know what to do. So they'll convert it nicely into that. And I think the Jaguares will make the leap, because I didn't want to be left out, into the playoffs, and they're going to win this one by 3. Close, though. It's going to be very close.
So you're going slightly closer than us. So finally, we have the Stormers versus the Sharks. Who is going to get schooled? Here. So just to go on the a few stats on this one. So the Stormers have won all their home games bar 2 against the Lions and I think it was the Chiefs, whereas the Sharks haven't won away all season. So, Steve, with those stats, this one's sort of home win all over it, isn't it?
Well, going by those stats, you'd have to say that the Stormers will blow them away, but you just never know. You just never know with the Sharks. I've said it all season long. I'm a huge fan of the Sharks team. I want them to play well, and they did last round as well. I think they had probably one of the better games of recent times. Picking up a win against the Lions, first time South African teams beat them 2 years, isn't it? Something like that. It's phenomenal that they've come to get to that point. But the question is, what follows that? Because we've seen from the Sharks throughout the season, yes, they can produce an amazing game, brilliant games, normally at home as well, and then follow that up by just some atrocious play straight after it and terrible performances. So the Sharks are running very, very mostly cold, but sometimes a little hot. But, if they get their game right, these Stormers definitely are beatable because they were great for the most part of the season, but their home form has definitely dropped off in the latter part, going down to the Lions just a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of rounds ago. Of course, didn't really help them either, and so, they've got to keep on winning as well. So, tough one, but my pick may surprise you.
So the Stormers really are out of the playoff picture, but the Sharks are only 3 points behind the Rebels, so still in with an outside chance. So Shane, home advantage going to be enough, or the greater hunger of making the playoffs for the away side?
Well, I said last week, the Sharks are like a Volvo car. They're either perfect or they're not. And they obviously got the win against the Lions, so they proved the test drive was worth buying for the. But you're now watching a game between two Volvo cars because both of them can be perfect on their day. The essence of the Sharks is that they have so much potential, like Steve said. They won 3 out of the 4 games against New Zealand sides. They only had a draw against one of our sides, and because the Sunwolves are in our conference, they beat them. So, and they've obviously your home conference games are the key, and there'll be incentive for them to perform against the Stormers and try and themselves get into the final. So, I like the Sharks when they're hot, because they've got a good back line, they've got a mobile set of forwards, they can play a very fast line speed of rugby. So can the Stormers. Oh, gee, I reckon it'll be tight at Newlands because the Stormers have a big crowd there. It's a big derby game, as these derby games always are in South Africa. So the volatility of picking a winner here is going to be quite hard for me.
Get off the fence. Who's it going to be? Which way is it going to go?
The Sharks by the bare minimum.
So the Sharks by 1, hey? I just can't look past that home field advantage and the fact that South African teams just can't travel down the road, never mind to another city. So I'm backing the Stormers, as Steve says, to blow them away by 3. And Steve, which you said you surprise us. So which flip flop way are you going to go?
Well, Shane stole my thunder here, but I'm going to steal his analogy because these are both Volvo cars that don't like to leave the garage. So it's going to be one tough to pick. But yeah, I am going probably against the trend and going to go by the Sharks by 2 was my pick. But you stole my thunder. Jeez, Shane.
Sorry, mate.
I thought I'd be the only one to pick the Sharks, but hot 2 weeks in a row. That's what I'm going for.
Oh, well, Andre in the chat, being a Sharks fan, has also gone for the Sharks, as has Christian, and Jack's going my way with the Stormers. So, and King Bilko has also, Biko has also gone Stormers. He's gone Stormers by 14, so he's expecting a bit of a blowout there. So, so that's how we. We think that last one's going to be very close. It's basically a coin flip. I think really the bounce of the ball is going to decide that final one. Thank you very much for joining me, fellas. Steve, why don't you let people know where they can get your fantastic previews and other gaming rugby videos?
Yep, you can find me at Cornflakes Crib. That's all you need to know on YouTube and on Twitter. At Cornflakers probably should be sitting around here, hopefully for you all to come and say hi, have a bit of a chat on Twitter. We always have some good action going on over the weekend of games and plenty of videos going up during the weeks as well. And hopefully we'll go for a Sharks win, and then we can see a nice tight playoffs race next weekend. Because I don't want to see the Rebels win and the Sharks lose, because then your top eight's already sorted. So let's go for some knockout rugby a week early.
Shane, let people know how they can get hold of you and have a good old chat.
I'm at Schoolermate, SCOOLM8 on Twitter. Come talk rugby.
So always up for Go Rugby Chat, so comments down below, or you can catch me on Twitter at DrivingMaul. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe if it's your first time here, retweet, let all your friends know, and obviously don't forget that whole Patreon thing if you want to support us financially, because, you know, all this lovely software that lets me do stuff on Periscope and YouTube at the same time, and all these lovely graphics and stuff, all unfortunately costs a bit of money. So if you can help, that'd be much appreciated, and enjoy whatever rugby you're watching this weekend.